Hello to each one of you who's watching the video today. Today we're going to discuss the location of cities, and under this I'm going to talk about the central place theory. The theory was first given by Walter Christeller, who was a German geographer, and he tested his theory in Germany, and he attempts to explain the reasons why human settlement there's a pattern to human settlement, and why is it that people start living at certain places. For this you can first tell about the basic ideas of a central place theory. Basically there are three ideas. First, you can tell that it is a geographical theory which seeks to explain the number, the size and the location of human settlements in a residential system. He introduced this theory in 1933, and to develop this theory he has used the following assumptions. He says that in all the areas that area is flat. He assumes that, which later on becomes the criticism also, and the population is equally distributed. All the people have equal access to resources. There is perfect competition, and consumers are of the same income level. They have the same purchasing power, with which the demand of the goods and services is also the same. Consumers visit the nearest central places to fulfill their demands, and they are ready to move to a far distant place as long as their demands are fulfilled. And there is monopoly of services. The transportation is also depends on the central place, how far people are ready to travel and in which direction they are ready to travel in order to get the goods as well as the services that they need. Now, before we move on, there are two important concepts to this theory. First is the threshold and second is the range. Threshold is the minimum market, that is how much is the population that is living in a particular area to get a particular service, and next is the range, what is the maximum distance the consumers are ready and prepared to travel to acquire those goods. Now, in the earlier theories we have discussed the hexagon model. Now here also Christeller has taken up the hexagon model. Why he has discarded the circular and the squares, the reasons are given. In circles he says that there is an overlap and it leaves gaps between the areas where the population is living, and in squares also there are not equidistant from the center. So he decided on to pick up the hexagon to explain the population, the human. He says it is the result of the consumer preferences that there will be a system of centers of various sizes will emerge, which will give rise to hierarchies, and with which we can make generalization regarding the space, size, and the function of the settlement. The larger the settlement is, the fewer is going to be the number of villages. A settlement increases in size, the number of functions will also increase, and as the settlement in the size increases, the services will also increase. And he says that there are two types of goods and services, the high order goods and services and the lower order goods and services, and people will be willing to travel to acquire the services even if they have to go a longer distance. On the basis of the hierarchy of the pyramid, he says there is a shopping centers which are in the low order goods, and then comes the high order goods in which there are services like shopping malls and arcades. Now he goes on to say that the settlement is distributed in 5 forms. The hamlets, that is a smaller population, human population living, and and then the village, the town, the city, and then the metropolis. To explain his hexagons, he has given three principles. First is the marketing principle, which he calls K3, and he's explained it is in the ratio of 1/3 of the total settlement. He talked of the transport principle, in which the market area is of a higher order principle, and he calls it K4. And third principle is the administrative principle, which he calls the K7, which is the political and the social principle, in order to explain how the high order places are administratively, controlled. This is the model you can draw, and the answer, it will, clearly depict the city, that is the center, that is the central place, how it is surrounded by the towns and the village and the hamlets in the outer side. Now, what are the factors which are important in shaping the extent of a market area? These are the factors. First is the land use. Second is the poor accessibility, which lets the people to, travel to certain area. Then there is competition. Then there is technology also plays a very important role. How people will communicate with what they want, unless or until they have a good transportation system. And for that, technology will come into. So this is a very simple model that he's created, but it has been criticized firstly that it is very static. It is fixed, that it has a flatter area and people are ready, and there are fixed villages, and the people have a stable income which does not come about. And then it is the temporal aspect of the development. And lastly, it may be applicable to an agriculture area where there is not much of development, but for industries and post-industrial areas where the things change and there are diversified services changing coming about, this theory is not really applicable. Thank you.